Here's an article from Organic Consumers Association, May 16, 2019. Controversial drug ractopamine is back in the news and still in your food. A controversial drug allowed in meat production in the US but banned in 160 other countries is in the news again. This time, it's because the Trump administration, as part of a trade deal, is trying to force China to allow imports of US pork raised with ractopamine. Ractopamine is a beta-agonist routinely fed to pigs, cattle, and turkey raised in industrial factory farms, or in industry parlance, concentrated animal feeding farms, or CAFOs. The drug mimics the effects of adrenaline and is used to increase muscle tissue and make animals grow faster. It's manufactured by Elanco Animal Health, until recently a division of drug giant Eli Lilly and Company. If you buy industrially produced pork at a US supermarket, it likely contains ractopamine. Around 60 to 80% of industrial pork producers use the drug. If Trump forces China to allow imports of US pork raised with ractopamine, that percentage could increase, and so will Elanco's profits.
The Elanco you know and trust today has been around for more than half a century. That's half a century of development, transition, and innovation. And half a century of consistent focus in partnership with their customers to transform animal care and well-being. Decade after decade, Elanco has been on an ongoing journey to help shape the lives of animals and human companions for the better. From the earliest beginnings with Eli Lilly and Company in the 1950s, to forming their own identity as Elanco in the 1960s, and standing at the precipice of growth and change. Into the 1970s, when Elanco was forging their future with new products focused on high quality and high standards, and eventually transitioning toward new technology, new research findings, and newly fulfilled passions. Passion for the customer and the value of their needs and perspectives. Becoming Elanco Animal Health in the 1990s and combining the commitment to the customer with a focus on the animal health industry.
Pork producers aren't required to tell you they use ractopamine, so don't bother looking for it on the label. To avoid it, buy from a trusted local farmer or look for the American Grass-Fed Association logo. AGA-certified meat prohibits the use of ractopamine. Ractopamine's long, controversial history. In 2013, the Center for Food Safety and Animal Legal Defense Fund sued the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for withholding records pertaining to ractopamine safety. According to the lawsuit, in response to the group's request for information documenting, analyzing, or otherwise discussing the physiological, psychological, and/or behavioral effects of ractopamine, the FDA produced only 464 pages out of the existing 100,000 pages of records. Worse, all 464 pages had already been released as part of a reporter's Freedom of Information Act request. In 2014, CFS, along with the Humane Society of the United States and United Farm Workers of America, filed lawsuits against the FDA trying to vacate 11 animal drugs approvals, including ractopamine. The suits claimed the FDA had not adequately considered the effects of ractopamine on animal welfare, worker safety, wildlife, and waterways. But in 2015, U.S. District Court Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers dismissed the petitions, stating that the groups had not exhausted direct appeals to the FDA in the form of citizen petitions. Plaintiff lawyers argued that such drawn-out petitions allow dangerous drugs to remain in the food supply indefinitely. USDA protects corporations first, consumers last. Unlike human drugs, which must be proven safe, food ingredients approved by the U.S. Department of Agriculture must be proven unsafe before the agency will prohibit them in food.
Why do beef and pork farmers use ractopamine? Bottom line, more meat, less waste. Ractopamine is a feed ingredient whose safety and efficacy has been tested and approved in over 25 countries. It has been safely used in North America without incident since 1999. Beef and pork farmers use it just in the last 30 days of growth because it helps cattle and pigs produce more lean meat with less fat and less waste. More meat, less waste sounds great.
In other words, instead of following the precautionary principle, which would mean erring on the side of caution in consumers, the USDA gives the benefit of the doubt to food producers. The bias towards food producers is magnified by the government blocking laws requiring labels. Both Big Food and the government claim labels would confuse consumers and are unnecessary because there is no difference between foods containing things like GMOs or ractopamine and foods that don't contain those ingredients. The USDA did approve never fed beta-agonist labels that US meat producers may use and some are beginning to use, but the ractopamine-free labels were approved to appease big meat's many trading partners, including China, who won't buy US exports of meat raised with ractopamine, not because the agency was concerned about animal welfare or consumer safety. While the USDA did approve ractopamine-free labels for pork, there are no such labels, and there is another serious limitation to the move of U.S. meat producers to go ractopamine-free. Conspicuously lacking are labels declaring turkey and beef ractopamine-free, though as much as 30% of ration-fed cattle are fed the ingredient and an undisclosed number of turkeys. Clearly, pork has more export value than beef or turkey, especially because it is a mainstay of many Asian diets. Still, beef is an issue. Russia has not accepted U.S. beef since 2013, reports Successful Farming, including beta-agonist-free beef. What exactly is ractopamine? Ractopamine is a beta-agonist. In humans, it's used for asthma patients to relax and widen muscles of the airways to facilitate better breathing. The potential to use ractopamine to build muscle in livestock was discovered during testing when researchers found the drug made mice more muscular. Approvals of ractopamine in meat production flew almost completely under the public radar. It was approved for use in U.S. pigs in 1999, Paylean, for cattle in 2000, Optiflex, and for turkeys in 2009, Topmax. In 2010, the FDA expanded the feeding approvals for Optiflex in cattle. But from the beginning, there have been serious safety, regulatory, and transparency questions about ractopamine. So this is what the product Paylean, ractopamine hydrochloride, looks like, which is basically a steroid for pigs, or they like to call a food additive. Paylean is a feed ingredient for increased rate of weight gain and improved feed efficiency and increased carcass leanness in finishing swine weighing not less than 150 pounds, fed a complete ration containing at least 10% crude protein for the last 45 to 90 pounds of game prior to slaughter. In the late finisher phase, pigs naturally gain less muscle and more fat. Paylean directs nutrients towards quality lean gain and away from fat deposition, resulting in an increase in high-value lean cuts of meat. Paylean-fed pigs produce more muscle and less fat because they convert nutrition and feed to lean gain and more efficiency than control pigs. So it's written here, better feed efficiency, more lean gain with no effect on meat quality. So it increases average daily gain, improves feed efficiency, and increases carcass leanness. So here are the directions for use. There's a caution saying ractopamine may increase the number of injured and or fatigued pigs during marketing, not for use in breeding swine. So there's no effect on meat quality, yet it could increase the number of injured or fatigued pigs. So we can see on the label for Paylean that the active drug ingredient is ractopamine hydrochloride. So in the warning we see the active ingredient in Paylean, ractopamine hydrochloride, is a beta-adrenergic agonist. Individuals with cardiovascular disease should exercise special caution to avoid exposure.
Paylean looks like just basically feed curds, and what you do is this is a show diet, show pig Paylean, but here I'll show you a little here. Show pig Paylean, but it's more concentrated. What it does is they add Paylean to pellets, so you can feed just a small amount, because a small amount does so much work. And this pail right here costs $35 to $40.
3 years after ractopamine was already in use in U.S. pigs, The FDA's Center for Veterinary Medicine's Office of Surveillance and Compliance accused drug maker Elanco of withholding information about safety and effectiveness and adverse animal drug experiences. In a 14-page warning letter, the FDA's Gloria J. Donovan wrote, "Our representatives requested a complete and accurate list of all your GLP, good laboratory practices, studies involving Paylean, Ractopamine hydrochloride, including their current status, as well as the names of the respective study monitors. In response, your firm supplied to our representatives multiple lists which differed in the names of the studies and their status. In addition, your firm could not locate or identify documents pertaining to some of the studies. This situation was somewhat confusing and created unneeded delays for our representatives. Somewhat confusing might be an understatement." But then the letter went on to say that Elanco had failed to document phone calls from angry farmers reporting hyperactivity, dying animals, downer pigs, and tying up and stress syndromes. Where was the log of phone calls with the farmer concerns, including the reports that animals are down and shaking and pigs are vomiting after eating feed with Paylean, asked the FDA. It is not clear if the FDA even knew about an early Canadian study in which monkeys given ractopamine developed daily tachycardia, rapid heartbeat, and rats fed ractopamine developed cleft palates, protruding tongues, short limbs, missing digits, open eyelids, and enlarged hearts. In addition to the mutations, some rat pups were born dead or died soon after.
Don't farmers and ranchers care about the safety of their customers and the meat they consume?
Farmers and ranchers care greatly about the safety of the products they provide for consumers as well as their own family. That's why they only use ingredients that have been tested and approved by food safety agencies like the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. In fact, over 25 food safety agencies worldwide have approved ractopamine, while another 100+ countries will allow imported meat from animals fed ractopamine. A few countries don't allow it, but not because of safety concerns. No, it's because they don't want product that's 20% cheaper and leaner than the meat produced without the benefit of ractopamine.
But it's safe, claims Elanco lobbyists. Elanco's extensive lobbying has kept ractopamine on the market and in wider uses, despite concerns about the drug. 1/3 of all meetings on the Food Safety and Inspection Service's posted public calendar during several months in 2009 were either with Elanco representatives or had to do with ractopamine, as noted Born with Junk Food Deficiency, Martha Rosenberg. As consumers call for ractopamine-free meat, Elanco defends the drug's safety and even presumes to call ractopamine green, claiming that use of the drug means livestock need to eat less corn, which reduces the carbon footprint per pound of pork. Taking a cue from biotech companies that try to call frankenfoods natural, Elanco also says ractopamine is made from ingredients that can be found in nature, including raspberry ketones.
How can a feed additive that helps livestock gain more muscle be considered green or good for the environment?
Ingredients like ractopamine, which allow farmers to do more with less, are good for the environment because they use less water and create fewer greenhouse gases. You all understand that it takes land, fuel, and fertilizer to grow feed for these animals. If U.S. cattle and pig producers today stopped using ractopamine, we would need 500,000 more acres of land. Just for beef alone, we would need Iowa and Kansas again to raise enough cattle. Anybody want to put some cattle in their front yard? This stuff allows an animal to gain 20 to 30% more meat with the same amount of feed. That's like getting 200 more quarter pounders per animal for free.
Elanco even plays the Feed the World card, which companies like Monsanto had used to sell products like golden rice. Ractopamine enables farmers to safely produce more pork with greater efficiency and allows them to feed more people, says Elanco. No getting around it. Beta-agonists are bad for people, bad for animals. Ractopamine is not the only beta-agonist in use in animals and under a safety cloud. Clenbuterol, a cousin drug to ractopamine, causes such adrenaline effects in humans it was banned in Olympic sports. Cyclist Alberto Contador failed a Tour de France anti-doping test in 2010 for levels of clenbuterol, which he said he got from eating meat. Zilmax, another ractopamine cousin, is widely given to U.S. cattle with sometimes disastrous results. The hooves of cattle given zilpaterol were basically coming apart, said Keith Belk, a professor of animal science at Colorado State University, who viewed photos of lame cattle at Tyson Foods, Inc. slaughterhouse in southeastern Washington state in 2014 at a convention. Some of the animals were euthanized because of the effects.
In August, Tyson Foods, a company that says it produces about 1 out of every 5 pounds of meat in the U.S., announced it would no longer accept cattle that had been fed with the feed additive Zilmax. The processor said it was concerned about cases in which animals had difficulty walking. Merck, the company producing Zilmax, has suspended sales and is studying whether or not there's a connection. Reiterate why people would want to feed it. How much weight can it add?
Well, there's really two beta-agonists that have been FDA approved. One called Optiflex, which is ractopamine, increases carcass weights 12 to 20 pounds depending upon the dosage that you give. And then the other one, feeding Zilmax, the response that we see is generally about 30 or more pounds of carcass weight when it's fed for the last 20 days in a 3-day withdrawal. And so both products are very effective in increasing carcass weight. And so you get more weight on cattle and sell more pounds of beef with less inputs. And so there's a lot of discussion in the industry about the advantages of using technologies like that to increase the amount of beef we produce on the same amount of inputs.
Our first story off to talk about in 2014 it has me in a bit of a quandary, because on the one hand, I'm completely appalled at the findings of a recent Reuters investigation into pharmaceutical giant Merck. Apparently, Merck is looking to reintroduce the livestock growth stimulant Zilmax to the market after ceasing sales of the drug when 15 cows showed up at a Washington state Tyson slaughterhouse with their hooves either missing or basically falling apart. This then sparked an intense FDA investigation. Now, on the other hand, this story has me, as I said, in a bit of a quandary because I'm kind of confused about the idea that we aren't up in arms over the fact that what amounts to bovine roids are being pumped into our food source, and no one's saying anything. So which is worse? Another case of big pharma poisoning our food supply, or the fact that we just don't seem to care as long as the meat is cheap?
Honestly, I would say, when you ask that question, what's worse, I would say they're both about equal. The good thing is I do think there's a lot of good people out there that protest this kind of thing and are paying attention to this. So thankfully, I think that education is rising in terms of people demanding a quality food supply from these super corporations and big industrial farms. But yeah, in truth, big pharma, working in conjunction with our industrial food suppliers and all that to pump a bunch of roids into cows. I mean,
which is what it
scary.
is. It's a growth hormone, and it's given to cows in I think it's between 4 to 6 weeks before they are slaughtered. So what you're talking about is you're raising an animal, and then in a month and a half before you kill them, you're pumping them full of these muscle builders so that they get all pumped up, and you can then get more yield from that cow. That keeps the price of all of this down. It's about the cost of cheap meat. We don't want to spend.
We need it fast. We need a lot of it. Boom, 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 boom.
I need a 99-cent double cheeseburger, and I need you to figure out a way to do it. And this is how they're doing it. Now, what Reuters found in this report is pretty scary. So these 15 cows show up. They have no feet, and Tyson says, nope, no more cows that use Zilmax. You're out. Don't want them anywhere near it. What they found when they looked into it and talking to slaughterhouse people and farmers was that they had 285 cases of unexpected death or euthanizations that had to take place. The cows that came in with no hooves were euthanized.
These are all Zilmax-fed cattle.
These were all, and the one common factor that they all had that didn't, there was nothing else in these cases that would indicate a reason. The only common thread with them in that small group that they looked at were Zilmax.
Wow.
Now, so you had 75 had lost their hooves, 94 had developed pneumonia, and others to say there's no proof that Zilmax caused these deaths. The numbers simply are too small of a group to make a real.
Well, there's no proof, but there's a lot of like circumstantial evidence.
Right.
There's a muscle-building drug called Zilmax that's made by Merck & Co. An estimated 70 to 80% of U.S. cattle has been fed it or another beta-agonist over the last decade or so to beef them up and make them more flavorful, tender, and juicy. And according to Zilmax's website, it's perfectly safe. And we all benefit from Zilmax. That's really what the site says. The FDA said it was safe, and Merck had some scientific experts study how the cows act when they're on Zilmax. And they said the well-being of the cows is totally not affected when they take Zilmax. So I guess they didn't study the recent 17 cows whose hooves fell off because of the Zilmax they were taking. I'm not kidding. The poor live cows' hooves fell off, causing them immense pain, obviously, and also rendering them too messed up to even eat or to live anymore. They had to be immediately put down and not eaten because that's just gross. When Merck was questioned about it, they stressed that Zilmax is perfectly safe. They said they brought in third-party experts who said the hoof loss was not due to the Zilmax. They have, however, temporarily suspended sales of the drug in the US and Canada, even though it's perfectly safe. Meanwhile, cattle has been euthanized after using Zilmax over and over again, and the number of cattle euthanized in the industry rose over 175% since the drug's introduction. So dumb. Come on, corporations. Stop putting horrible crap into our food.
After ag professionals saw the images of cattle severely injured from Zilmax, food giant Tyson told feedlot customers it would stop accepting Zilmax-fed cattle for slaughter, and manufacturer Merck temporarily suspended Zilmax sales. The next year, however, despite FDA reports of 285 U.S. cattle dying unexpectedly or being destroyed after being fed Zilmax, and 75 animals who lost hooves, 94 with pneumonia, and 41 with bloat, Merck reversed itself and said it would reintroduce the drug. Cattle producers said Zilmax was mandatory during drought conditions. Growing animals with more weight and meat with less feed is the name of the big meats game. Temple Grandin, professor of animal science at Colorado State University, confirms the deleterious effects of Zilpaterol. Feedlot managers report the outer shell of the hoof fell off on the drug, she says. The indiscriminate use of Paylean, Ractopamine, also contributes to an increase in downer, non-ambulatory pigs and pigs that are extremely difficult to move and drive, she notes, leading to unacceptable harm to animals. An article in the 2003 Journal of Animal Science confirms that ractopamine does affect the behavior, heart rate, and catecholamine profile of finishing pigs and making them more difficult to handle and potentially more susceptible to handling and transport stress. According to an article in the peer-reviewed scientific journal Talanta, the use of highly active beta-agonists as growth promoters is not appropriate because of the potential hazard for human and animal health.
Zilmax is a feed supplement which cattle feeders utilize for about the last 20 days of the feeding period for finished cattle. And when those cattle arrive to the packer, there are 4 cattle feeders selling based on carcass value. And so our database of trials with almost 50,000 head of cattle, we see an average response in beef steers of an additional 33 pounds of hot carcass weight for that cattle feeder when those cattle arrive to the packer. And that can realize an economic return for the cattle feeder of upwards of $30 per head that can be achieved in roughly 3 to 4 weeks' time. Additional profit opportunity for the cattle feeder.
Better yet, come on, humanity! Stop putting so many burgers into our mouths. Meat production is one of the big contributors to potent greenhouse gas emissions, including carbon dioxide, methane gas, and nitrous oxide. The cattle industry also screws up the land, and meat producers shove a ton of antibiotics into the meat, which is helping to screw up our antibiotic resistance as a species.
Well, Zilmax is a technology that we feel delivers value from the cattle feeder through the packer all the way to the consumer. And as everyone in the cattle industry is aware, we've got some tough environmental pressures on us to meet the very positive global and U.S. demand for U.S. U.S. grain-fed beef. And really, Zilmax supports meeting that growing global demand while conserving resources. The additional efficiency that's achieved in those last 20 days of feeding of Zilmax saves significant amounts of resources, including feed resources. There's no additional feed required to bring forward the improved beef production from the product. You're also saving significant amounts of water there at the feed yard. Because of the improved efficiency, you're able to bring that forward, that additional beef forward faster, conserving significant amounts of water at the feed yard. You're also bringing more beef forward per animal, and we're aware with the pressures on our cow herd, we've had multiple years of slight decreases in the cow herd, while at the same time demand for our product globally has grown for beef, and so the product helps realize more beef production per animal.
Eating so much meat is not great for the planet or our arteries. And yet we're eating more meat than ever, according to a new study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Isn't it about time that we stop lining up like a bunch of sheep at McDonald's to eat our daily serving of cow? It might be time for us to realize our population is too beefed up, and our food corporations are too screwed up to consider burgers as a main staple in our diet anymore.
I'm here with Mr. Alex Azar from Lilly. Alex is the president of Lilly in North America. And Alex, welcome to the ACR.
Thank you, Dr. Kush. Great to see you.
Again, always good to see you. So it's nice, Alex, to stop by. We could talk about things that concern us, which is drugs and drug pricing. So I thought I'd like to start out with the topic of drug pricing. It's a timely issue. It's in the news. It's something that all practitioners are concerned with, as well as patients. From a company standpoint, and you individually, how are you handling this? So what's the approach?
Well, I think it's going to be really important that we work together with the insurance industry to try to find very constructive solutions. One of them is ways in which we can get more of the rebate passed through to the patient at the point of sale when they're at the pharmacy, so that they get the benefit of the rebates that we're paying, even if they have a high deductible health care plan. The other is, I want to see that when you as the physician, the patient, and the insurance company through a prior authorization have decided that this is the right medicine for this patient, I don't think that should be still subject to big deductibles or very high cost sharing. Those are techniques we use to keep people off medicines that aren't appropriate.
Right.
Why not? That ought to be something we encourage adherence, and that means we ought to have co-pays in the $50 to $100 range, which is when people start falling off. Because you know what's happening now is a patient may have a high deductible health care plan where they have a $4,000 deductible per year. Well, we're paying billions of dollars of rebates, just our one company, billions of dollars of rebates to the insurance companies to try to get better formulary position for our drugs so that they're affordable for the patient.
Right.
Well, that worked really well when we had the old standard kind of healthcare plans. And then it was called buying down the copay. You would buy it down to $50 or something reasonable.
Right.
Well, now, for that first period of $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, the patient gets 100% of that cost, even if we're paying the high rebate during that. So 10 to 20% of patients pay more out of pocket than their insurance company does for their drugs.
We'd like to move to, as the whole healthcare system is more of a value-based pricing scheme. So rather than have a list price and then negotiate all these deals and rebates, have a system whereby the value produced by the medicine, so preserved days out of the hospital or better HbA1c rates for people with diabetes, that's how we figure out the remuneration for the inventor. Now, a lot of work to do to get there. We need changes in Washington as well as some innovation with our commercial payer partners. But Lilly's trying to lead the way on both those points.
Well, speaking of Washington, the president-elect hasn't said much about the drug industry, but what he has said is that he doesn't like what's happened with drug prices, and he wants to bring them down.
Yeah.
What are your expectations for what Trump means for the industry, and is everybody holding their breath to see who he's going to tweet about?
Well, we'll engage with the new administration, as we would any new administration. And Chairman Price, who's the new HHS incoming secretary, knows a lot about health care, to try to solve the problems I was just discussing, which is how do we make medicines as affordable for patients as we can and more balanced with the rest of the healthcare services and products people consume. We think if we do that, people realize medications are a great way to invest our healthcare dollars. Eventually, most of these medications become almost free because they go generic. That's unique for pharmaceuticals. Other services in the healthcare system don't have that feature. So we're happy to partner with them to try to solve these problems. Value pricing is another theme we've been after.
Next guest attended the big pharma roundtable with President yesterday. David Ricks is with us. He is the president and CEO of Eli Lilly. David, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us, sir.
Thanks for having me, Stuart. Appreciate it.
I think the president beat you guys up yesterday. He wants to get your prices down and he wants you to make drugs in America. How did you feel? Were you beaten up?
Well, actually, we felt pretty positive about the meeting because we were able to talk about a broad range of issues. You know, quite often the pharmaceutical industry gets into this pricing debate. Our frame on that is really this is about affordability for patients, and we'd like to work with the White House and Congress to address that. Yeah. But we also got to talk about industrial policy and, as you said, manufacturing and jobs. And we think there are things in the president's proposed policies that could help us expand operations domestically.
This is the Elanco page on Wikipedia. In 2018, Eli Lilly and Company announced plans to separate its Elanco Animal Health unit from the rest of the business via an initial public offering on the New York Stock Exchange with the stock ticker ELAN. In 2019, the divestiture was completed and Elanco launched on the New York Stock Exchange.
Campus-based Eli Lilly now planning an initial public offering or an IPO for the part of animal health business Elanco. Now, you might recall that Elanco brought in about 13% of Lilly's revenue last year, and the execs at Lilly say that this move is going to provide the company with a greater focus on human pharmaceutical business. Now, after news of that IPO broke earlier today, Lilly share prices jumped big time.
Eli Lilly and Company today announced that the company has completed its strategic review of Elanco Animal Health and will file a registration statement in the coming weeks with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission for a potential initial public offering of a minority ownership stake in Elanco as a separate company. The offering is expected to represent an ownership stake of less than 20%. The number of shares to be offered and the price range of the offering have not yet been determined. The company expects to complete the IPO process during the second half of 2018. For Lilly's financial reporting, Lilly will continue to consolidate Elanco and its financial results. Lilly plans to divest its remaining ownership through a tax-efficient transaction. Execution of the IPO is dependent upon and subject to a number of factors and uncertainties, including business and market conditions. Based on our strategic review, we concluded that after-tax value for Lilly shareholders would be maximized by pursuing an initial public offering of Elanco, said David A. Ricks, Lilly's chairman and CEO. We believe this will allow Elanco to efficiently deploy its resources to those growth opportunities that best serve its customers. In addition, this will provide Lilly even greater focus on the human pharmaceutical business to pursue our purpose of creating life-changing medicines for patients. With more than 6 decades of expertise in animal health, we are prepared to take this step to become an independent company, said Jeffrey Simmons, president of Elanco Animal Health. With a sole focus on animal health, we will help our customers address the greatest challenges of keeping animals healthy and together advance a vision of food and companionship enriching life.
I think the dedicated animal health model we see is a way to serve our customers better. I think it's all about speed. It's the right cost structure. It's using the capital in the right way against our customer needs. Lilly's in a great position of strength, so this is a good time, and the market's ready as well. I think the phenomenon interest in animals, society's never had more of a, I think, interest in animals, both on the pet side and livestock side. So a great excitement today, but excitement with our employee base as well.
Animal-only antibiotics up 9%. That's about 24% of your total revenues. That's pretty big numbers. Do you expect that kind of top-line growth can continue in animal-only antibiotics?
You know, we're looking at this whole area of the livestock sector, and we've been for more than 10 years leading as kind of stewards in this area with the industry. It starts all with the well-being of that animal. So we're innovating alternatives to antibiotics. The animal only does not bring the resistance concerns that people have had. So that focus, high quality meat, milk, and eggs starts with a very healthy animal, and that's where we begin, and focused mostly around that veterinarian that knows the condition of the animal as well as anybody.
How much of your business is pet healthcare versus animal for food healthcare?
Yeah, so it's about 1/3, 2/3. 1/3 companion animal and pets, 2/3 food animal.
How about R&D versus human health? Where
Right.
does it rank as a percentage of something?
Yeah, so we're spending about 8% of our sales on R&D. That's been pretty consistent. We actually are launching as an IPO, a little unusual. We have launched 3 new products a year since 2015. We're doing it again this year. So we come in as an IPO with a nice portfolio of products in both livestock and companion animals against all sectors.
Jeff, wanted to ask you on the livestock side, it's an industry that is facing tariffs and has been caught in the crosshairs of all of this back and forth on trade. Does that affect your business because your primary customers are hurting with their exports?
Yeah, no, we got a very global business. So when you have a global business, really the dependency on trade for the way our business makeup is really something we don't believe is going to be significant concerns here in the short and medium term.
In the meantime, animal health company Elanco ringing the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange after going public just last Thursday. To Elanco President and CEO Jeff Simmons and our own Jerry Willis. Welcome, guys. This has gotten to be a booming sort of a Wall Street favorite. Animal care and treatment and all the implications. But even by Wall Street initial standards, the reception you've gotten is off the charts.
Yeah, I think the care and the well-being of an animal, Neil, has never mattered more to society all over the world than it does today. And I think it's both on the pet side, I kind of say a cat, a cow, or a chicken. I mean, it matters. And it's been demonstrated more so here recently just by everything from the pet. More than 7 out of 10 homes now have a pet here in the United States. But also people, consumers, care about even the meat, milk, and eggs, the care and the well-being of that animal.
Okay, let's define that performance that you just mentioned. It was a better first-day return than any billion-dollar IPO since Twitter. You guys were on fire. It was impressive. I want to talk about drug development just for a second, because we're talking about drugs for animals, for livestock, and for pets, right? And the development procedure is far different for humans, and it's one of the reasons investors like the category.
Yeah, so regulated by the FDA and very, much of a comprehensive process. But you're looking, because of the differences in animals, 3 to 7 years versus maybe 9 to 13 on the pharmaceutical side. And it can be a drug development cost $25 up to $100 million. Now, our drugs are smaller. A blockbuster in our industry may be $100 million in revenue, but it persists longer. It's a cash business, not a payer business, so you're able to be, selling directly to farmers and veterinarians. Yeah, I think, look, animals, there's the significance of animals today, especially if you look on the livestock side. I mean, FAO or the United Nations has said we need 75% more meat, milk, eggs, and fish by 2050. Because of, I think, the Western diet, as carbs and sugar have become a lot less. You go into Costco, 2 out of 3 diet books and cookbooks are all driven by protein. That's driving, as well as, as people get more money, protein becomes a bigger part of the diet.
Protein is a bigger part, but the FDA has come out with rules that have not helped your company, right? They want to make sure that these antibiotics don't get in the human food chain. What has that done to your business? Yeah, so we've very much said, hey, we're going to innovate in the future. We were part of the whole antibiotic resistance forum back with President Obama, and we said, hey, we would bring more than 24 candidates into our pipeline. They're antibiotic alternatives. We've done more than half of that. We see it as actually a disruptive way of opportunity. But we got to remember, the ultimate food safety comes from a healthy animal in our business. The veterinarian knows the condition. If we can provide an alternative, which we have nutritional health products, enzymes and pro and prebiotics, as well as vaccines as kind of the first line of treatment, and then animal-only antibiotics if necessary. So there's a focus on the animal, and a healthy animal creates that high-quality food that we need. Veterinarians got to stay in the center. So we actually have seen it as an opportunity. So we took it, I think, Lilly in a real position of strength now. Eli Lilly as a company launching products during an era where they they were positioning these new products to launch, we came in and really built a top-tier animal health company through acquisition as well as through innovation. And now we're in a state where we believe we've got the size and the scale, we've got the geographic spread to be able to grow organically with these new innovations as well as just geographic expansion. Being able to address them with in a cash business direct with value, you can differentiate with portfolios and innovation.
Look forward to it, Jeff. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And we're excited about the next wave of growth as well. We're investing in R&D and products like we unveiled a mid-stage study for a product called Trizipatide.
The trends in your business seem to be strong and will continue to be strong, it would seem, for quite some time. Is it that simple?
Yeah, I mean, I think the overall fundamentals of the animal health space continue, I think, to be resistant against some of the, whether it's the economies of pet ownership, as well as, I think, just the underlying demand for meat, milk, and eggs in the economy going forward.
Well, particularly because your IPO performed very well, as I recall, it was only, a few weeks? It was only a couple of months ago, I guess, Jeff. On the outset, and so you are being able to support at least a price that was significantly higher where your underwriters set it. I know we may have asked this on IPO day, but Eli Lilly still owns 80%. Given the move in the stock, what is their plan in terms of potentially distributing some of their shares in the future?
Yeah, they've been very clear that they will plan to exit the business in 2019. I mean, they're in a real strong position of strength right now with launching many products, and as we look at the needs that we had going forward, and from an investment perspective, this seemed to be the right strategic move, and so they will exit in 2019 the remaining share of Elanco.
Hey, Jeff, not sure that...
You know what managed to go higher today despite really incredible hideous action we saw? Eli Lilly, LLY, the big pharmaceutical company with a stock that's been a huge winner this year, even as it's come down from its highs in the past few weeks. Today, though, Eli Lilly held its investor meeting, and the company gave you a very bullish forecast for 2019.
Alex Michael Azar II is an American politician, attorney, former pharmaceutical lobbyist, pharmaceutical executive, and current presidential cabinet member who serves as the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services. Azar was nominated to his post by President Donald Trump on November 13, 2017, and confirmed by the United States Senate on January 24, 2018. He was also chairman of the White House Coronavirus Task Force from its inception in January 2020 to February 2020, when he was replaced by Vice President Mike Pence. Azar served as General Counsel of the United States Department of Health and Human Services from 2001 to 2005. On July 22, 2005, he was confirmed as the Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services. He served in that capacity until his January 2007 resignation. From 2012 to 2017, Azar was president of the U.S. division of Eli Lilly and Company, a major drug company, and a member of the board of directors of the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, a large pharmaceutical trade association. Eli Lilly and Company. In June 2007, Azar was hired by Eli Lilly and Company Chief Executive Officer Sidney Torrell to be the company's top lobbyist and spokesperson as its Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Communications. Azar left the position after the 2008 United States presidential election was won by Democratic Party candidate Barack Obama, and the corporation wanted to replace Azar with a Democrat in that role. In April 2009, Azar became vice president of Lilly's U.S. Managed Healthcare Services Organization and its Puerto Rico affiliate. In 2009, the company paid $1.415 billion to settle criminal charges regarding its promotion of antipsychotic drug Zyprexa for off-label uses between 1999 and 2005. Effective January 1, 2012, Azar became president of Lilly USA, LLC, the largest division of Eli Lilly and Company, and was responsible for the company's entire operations in the United States. Prices for drugs rose substantially under Azar's leadership, including the tripling of the cost of the company's top-selling insulin drug. Also, under Azar's watch, Eli Lilly was one of 3 companies accused in a class action lawsuit of exploiting the drug pricing system to increase profits for insulin. Eli Lilly was also fined in Mexico for colluding on the price of insulin. In connection with the position, Azar served on the board of directors of the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, a pharmaceutical lobby. In January 2017, Azar resigned from Eli Lilly to quote-unquote pursue other career opportunities as a result of a company reorganization. He also resigned from the board of directors of the Biotechnology Innovation Organization. In his last year at the corporation, he earned $2 million.
This is Mr. Alex Azar. Come here, Alex. He's going to get those prescription drug prices way down as a little bit of an extra, right? It's going to come rocketing down. Alex is joined today by his father, Alex. Thank you. Congratulations. Of course, I'll only say congratulations if he does a great job, right? Which I know he will. Upon taking his oath of office, Alex will take the helm of a department he has already served with tremendous distinction, first as general counsel and later as deputy secretary. In both those roles, Alex was outstanding and an incredible public servant. People talk about him to this day. He was instrumental in improving the department's operations and advancing its emergency response capabilities. Alex knows inside and out the impact of government policy on patients, healthcare, and prices. As the former president of Lilly USA, big company, great company, and he did an incredible job, Alex brings invaluable private sector experience to complement his years of public service. As our new secretary, Alex will continue to implement the administrative and regulatory changes needed to ensure that our citizens get the affordable, high-quality care they deserve. We have to get the prices of prescription drugs way down and unravel the tangled web of special interests that are driving prices up for medicine and for really hurting patients. And we're going to get that done. That's going to be so important. You look at other countries, they pay a fraction for the exact same drug, the exact same pill in an identical box from the same factory costs us much more, many times more, than it does in other countries. And nobody knows that process better than Alex, and we're going to get it done because it's very unfair to our country. Neighboring countries pay a tiny fraction of what we pay for the same exact pill made in the same location. And I will say this, prescription drug prices is going to be one of the big things. And whenever I speak to Alex, I speak to him about that, I think, prior to anything else. Yes. And I know you can do it. You know the system, and you can do it because it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And as you heard from the President today, it is a charge that includes his personal direction to me that we have to tackle the scourge of the opiate crisis, and we will bring down prescription drug prices. I look forward to that mission, to the work ahead, and now it's time to get to work. Thank you all very much.
President making some comments before the swearing-in ceremony about drug prices and what he hopes, sounded like to us, the federal government would try to impose price controls on medicines in the United States. It's not clear that that's possible, but something certainly the president, I'm sure a lot of Americans would appreciate that, to pay fewer dollars for medicine that's extremely expensive in this country. But to get medicine to be cheap requires a kind of health infrastructure that we do not have.
A little more than just the Health and Human Services Secretary can do, though. During his confirmation hearings, Alex Azar said that that would be a priority for him. He's actually served in the Health and Human Services Department under George W. Bush, and now he's coming back as the secretary. He would know an awful lot about pharmaceutical prices, though, because he was also an executive in the pharmaceutical industry, particularly with Eli Lilly for 5 years. And Eli Lilly has enjoyed the benefits of rapidly rising drug prices. So some of their signature insulin drugs have shot up some 200% in the past few years.
So it's a conflicting message here. The President of the United States has he campaigned and his administration has been a frequent voice with regards to removing regulations, allowing companies to access the free market, which is what we have in this country. We're a capitalistic society, nothing wrong with that. And if Mr. Azar, having spent all that time in the pharmaceutical industry, I don't foresee his ability or his desire, perhaps in this administration, where removing those restrictions and those regulations are important to the administration to all of a sudden imposing restrictions on a public company.
Again, I am grateful to President Tsai for welcoming us to Taiwan, and I look forward to using this visit to convey our admiration for Taiwan and to learn about how our shared democratic values have driven success in health. Thank you.
那再一次，我要感谢蔡总统欢迎本人一行来到台湾。另外，也非常的期待要善用这次访台的机会，表达美国对台湾的新鲜之意。另外，也要善加机会来学习台湾是如何，在利用贵我双方都珍视的价值来缔造一位成就。谢谢。
就过2个礼拜以后，我们才知道，原来很有可能，他其实带着要说服台湾开放美猪美牛的这样的一个政治任务来的。为什么呢？因为有市议员找出他的连结，这个阿扎尔他当年就是瘦肉精莱克多巴胺利来公司的说客，然后老板。那我觉得这个实在是有点太夸张，就是说我们今天台湾被迫要开放这个美猪美牛莱克多巴胺的美猪，然后结果来讲这件事情的美国卫生部长，他自己就是莱克多巴胺的老板，我觉得这个实在是非常的夸张。
To be fair, Alex Azar was CEO of Eli Lilly and Company. Elanco Animal Health was a division under Eli Lilly and Company before splitting in 2018. After Alex Azar left. Therefore, the product Paylean containing Ractopamine was just one of many products under one of its divisions while he was CEO of Eli Lilly and Company.
美国猪含有瘦肉精莱克多巴胺，全世界没有人能够证明莱克多巴胺对人体的健康伤害有多大，只知道是有受到伤害。所以欧盟的国家讲得非常清楚。 不可以用瘦肉精的猪肉销到欧洲，大陆也如此，这些国家都是这样做的。那民进党竟然可以同意让美国瘦肉精的猪肉销到台湾来，让台湾的人民健康受到伤害，这就是人民的权利跟义务。所以蔡英文必须要立法，走立法审查的程序通过才对。今天行政院只说对了一件事，审查。 但他说错了，这个审查必须要立法，不是行政命令送去同意哈。所以我要跟各位讲，民进党都是在蒙混过关，在欺骗人民，在知法玩法，更重要的是伤害国人的健康。我再讲一遍，含有瘦肉精的猪肉，不必要也不可以销到台湾给台湾人民吃，这是最基本的要求。我们只要求这一点而已。 绝对不可以让民进党再去搞花样，真的让瘦肉精的猪进到台湾。我另外还要再讲，一只猪养大大概10个月，美国也有不用瘦肉精的猪肉啊，有啊，美国有很多养猪是不用瘦肉精的啊，所以它可以销往大陆，它可以销往欧洲，销往其他的国家，有啊。那为什么一定要卖有瘦肉精的猪给我们台湾呢？ 一只用瘦肉精养成的猪，它的利润才增加多少？几十块美金，甚至他们讲的2块美金，就这样而已啊。那美国的朋友需要为这么一点的利益去伤害台湾人的健康吗？蔡英文的政府需要就是让美国人多赚这一头猪几十块美金，然后伤害台湾人的健康吗？不需要的。各位国人，各位同胞，我们大家觉醒吧，醒悟吧。 美国人可以卖不含瘦肉精的猪给我们吃，这是可以的，这是世界对他的要求，可以的。所以我们要求蔡英文的政府，我们 绝对不进含有瘦肉精的美国猪进到台湾。至于说行政命令要不要送到立法院去，我觉得全部停止，因为这个叫玩弄立法院，这叫玩弄人民。我们大家一起来努力，不要让含有瘦肉精的美国猪进到台湾。
So Zhou Xuwei just pointed out the additional profit for raising a pig with ractopamine. However, I believe that this deal to import pork with ractopamine in it is more about expanding the business of Elanco and Eli Lilly and Company. It also has the additional benefit of pleasing the industrial pig industry in the United States just 3 months ahead of the presidential election on November 3rd. So if you're wondering what it takes to get on the cover of Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People, perhaps helping raise the stock price of Elanco and Eli Lilly and Company will do the trick.